dancing close, feeling rest.
Road show. I'm a song that today.
Connect the telephone line.
What if the songs that defined an entire generation were never meant for young ears? The 1970s were not just about music. They were about boundaries being tested and broken. These tracks sparked outrage, fear, and fascination all at once. Some were banned, some were whispered about, and some slipped through quietly. But every one of them carried something adults did not want kids to hear. Love to Love. You Baby, Donna Summer, 1975.
As your heart reads my mind.
It did not sound like a song. It sounded like something you were not supposed to hear. When this track first hit the airwaves, it immediately crossed a line that radio had carefully protected for decades. Donna Summer did not just sing. She performed intimacy through sound. The track stretched beyond 16 minutes in its original form and was filled with breathy vocals that many listeners described as simulated pleasure. For adults, it was provocative. For kids, it was forbidden territory. Stations across the United States either refused to play it or cut it down into heavily sanitized edits. Some DJs even warned listeners before playing it late at night. Parents reacted quickly. This was not background music anymore. This was something that felt private and uncomfortable when heard in a family setting. The controversy only made it bigger. The more it was restricted, the more it spread. But for many households in the 1970s, this was the record you quietly turned off when children walked into the room. Brown Sugar, The Rolling Stones, 1971. At first, it sounded like another energetic rock anthem. Then, people started listening to the words. The Rolling Stones were already known for pushing limits, but this track went somewhere far more uncomfortable. Beneath the catchy rhythm were references to slavery, exploitation, and disturbing sexual undertones. It was the kind of song that slipped past younger ears, but alarmed adults immediately once the meaning became clear. Radio stations did play it, but often without discussion. Many avoided highlighting the lyrics entirely. In homes, however, it created tension. Parents who understood the subject matter quickly labeled it inappropriate. This was not rebellion in a playful sense. This was history and exploitation wrapped in rhythm. Over time, the controversy followed the band for decades. Even in later years, the group themselves acknowledged its complicated nature. But in the 1970s, this was one of those songs that adults did not want children repeating, because the meaning behind it carried weight far beyond the music. Walk on the Wild Side, Lou Reed, 1972.
All came from Miami, Philly.
It sounded calm, almost gentle. That was the trick. Lou Reed delivered this song in a laid-back tone that disguised what it was really about. The lyrics quietly referenced drag culture drug use and underground lifestyles that mainstream society barely discussed at the time. For adults, it was bold storytelling. For kids, it was exposure to a world they were never meant to understand. Radio stations often let it pass because the delivery was so subtle. There was no shouting, no obvious shock factor. But parents who paid attention caught the references quickly. Conversations around gender identity and street life were considered deeply inappropriate for young listeners in that era. That contrast made the song even more unsettling. It was not loud rebellion, it was quiet revelation. And because of that, it slipped into homes before many realized what it contained. Once they did, it became one of those records that adults preferred to keep out of reach. Money, Pink Floyd, 1973. This was not just music, it was criticism wrapped in sound. Pink Floyd built this track around cash registers and sharp observations about greed and power. It was part of a larger concept that challenged how society valued success, but what pushed it into forbidden territory was its language and tone. It did not speak politely, it confronted. In some stations, edited parts of the song to remove explicit wording. Others avoided it during daytime hours. For younger listeners, the deeper message was difficult to grasp, but adults understood immediately. This was a song that questioned the system itself. In conservative households, that alone was enough to raise concern. Music was expected to entertain, not challenge authority or expose uncomfortable truths. This track did both. It became a favorite among older audiences but remained something many parents discouraged their children from playing openly. School's Out. Alice Cooper, 1972.
Well, we got no choice.
It sounded like freedom. Adults heard something else. Alice Cooper turned a simple idea into a full-scale anthem of rebellion. The message was clear. School is over. Authority is gone. Rules do not matter. For kids, it felt exciting. For parents and teachers, it felt dangerous. The song quickly became controversial in educational circles. Some schools tried to ban it from events. Others openly criticized its influence. It was not just music anymore, it was behavior-shaping culture. The fear was simple. If children embraced this mindset, it could lead to disrespect and chaos. That fear spread quickly across households. Many parents saw the track as encouragement to break rules rather than celebrate a moment. Despite the backlash, it became iconic. But during its peak, it was one of those songs that adults kept a close eye on because they believed it could influence how kids viewed authority itself. Cocaine, Eric Clapton, 1977. The title alone was enough to trigger concern. Eric Clapton presented the song with a laid-back groove that masked its subject. While some interpreted it as a warning against drug use, others heard it as casual acceptance. That ambiguity created immediate controversy. Radio stations faced a dilemma. The song was popular, but the subject was undeniable. Some played it cautiously. Others avoided it altogether. In homes, the reaction was more direct. Parents did not want children casually repeating a word that represented a growing, real-world crisis. The 1970s saw increasing awareness of substance abuse, and this track landed right in the middle of that conversation. Even if the intent leaned toward caution, the message was not clear enough for comfort. For many families, it became a simple rule. If the song came on, it was turned off. Not because of the music itself, but because of what it represented. Smokin' in the Boys' Room. Brownsville Station, 1973. It told a story that adults did not want repeated. Brownsville Station built this track around a rebellious student caught breaking rules inside school walls. It was playful in tone but clear in message. Authority could be ignored. Consequences were just part of the fun. For younger listeners, it felt relatable. For parents and teachers, it felt like encouragement. The idea of normalizing rule-breaking inside schools struck a nerve. Educational systems already struggled with discipline, and this song seemed to celebrate the opposite. While it was not banned outright, it faced criticism from authority figures who saw it as a bad influence. In many homes, it became one of those songs adults tolerated quietly but did not approve of openly. The concern was not just about smoking. It was about attitude, and in the 1970s that attitude was something many adults tried hard to keep away from children. The Pill, Loretta Lynn, 1975. This was a conversation most adults were not ready to have. Loretta Lynn broke one of country music's biggest unspoken rules. She sang openly about birth control and female independence, topics that were rarely discussed publicly, especially in conservative communities. Radio stations reacted quickly. Many banned the song outright. Others refused to play it during daytime hours. The subject was considered too controversial for general audiences, and especially for children. In households, the reaction was even stronger. Parents did not want to explain the meaning behind the lyrics. It forced conversations they were not prepared to have. That alone made it a forbidden track. Yet the song also marked a shift. It challenged norms and gave voice to issues many women faced quietly. But during its release, it was seen as disruptive and inappropriate for younger ears, making it one of the most restricted songs of its time. Angie Baby, Helen Reddy, 1974. It felt like a simple story until it turned unsettling. Helen Reddy crafted a narrative that slowly revealed something darker beneath the surface. The song described a young girl isolated from the world and living within her own imagination. As the story progressed, it hinted at psychological instability and eerie consequences. For many listeners, this was not typical pop music. It carried a tone that felt almost haunting. Parents who understood the story often found it disturbing. It was not something they wanted children absorbing without context. The ambiguity made it even more concerning. There were no clear explanations, just suggestions that something was deeply wrong. That kind of storytelling was unusual for mainstream radio, and it caught many off guard. Because of its tone and subject, the song became one that adults monitored closely. Not banned everywhere, but certainly questioned in homes where its meaning raised more concern than comfort. You're 16, Ringo Starr, 1973.
You're beautiful and you're mine.
It sounded cheerful. The lyrics told a different story. Ringo Starr revived this track with a polished production that made it widely popular. But as it gained attention, so did the concerns. The song focused on admiration for a 16-year-old girl, which raised questions about appropriateness. In the 1970s, this kind of theme began attracting scrutiny, especially when presented in a mainstream hit. While it was not universally banned, it sparked discomfort among parents who viewed the subject as questionable for young listeners. The melody made it easy to overlook at first. It was upbeat and catchy, but once the lyrics were examined more closely, it became clear why some adults hesitated. This was not about rebellion or politics. It was about boundaries. And for many households, that made it a song better left unplayed around children despite its popularity. Anarchy in the UK, Sex Pistols, 1976.
You what? I use the best. I use the rest.
This was not subtle, it was confrontation. Sex Pistols introduced a sound and attitude that shocked the mainstream. The song openly rejected order, authority, and tradition. It did not suggest change. It demanded chaos. Media outlets reacted strongly. Some refused to promote it. Others criticized its message publicly. For younger audiences, it represented a new kind of rebellion that felt raw and uncontrolled. Parents saw it as dangerous, not just because of the lyrics, but because of the attitude behind them. This was not playful defiance. It was a direct challenge to the structure of society. In many homes, it became a clear boundary. This was not music for children. It was noise with a message that adults feared could influence how young listeners viewed the world around them. Tonight's the Night, Rod Stewart, 1976.
Kick off your shoes and sit right down.
It was soft, romantic, and deeply controversial. Rod Stewart delivered the song with a gentle tone that masked its underlying narrative. The lyrics described a moment of seduction with a level of intimacy that many found uncomfortable, especially for mainstream radio. Despite reaching massive success, it faced hesitation from broadcasters. Some stations limited when it could be played. Others debated whether it crossed a moral boundary. In homes, the reaction was clear. Parents did not want children exposed to lyrics that suggested adult situations so directly. It was not hidden behind metaphor. It was presented plainly. That honesty made it powerful but also problematic. It blurred the line between romance and something more mature. And in the 1970s, that line mattered greatly when it came to what younger audiences were allowed to hear. Some songs entertain, others challenge, and a few become forbidden for a reason. These tracks did more than top charts. They changed conversations and crossed lines that could not be ignored. If this list surprised you, stay tuned because the next one goes even deeper into music history.